بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Alhamdulillah, we begin by praising Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for this opportunity for us to continue our lessons in this blessed month of Rabiul Awwal, and we begin by praying that Allah make in this lesson a reason where our sins are forgiven, a reason where our prayers are answered, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless us with iman and taqwa and make us among those who remember Him in each and every moment. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless us with the doors of understanding and husnul khitam, and gather us with our Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam yawm al-qiyamah. Ameen ya rabbal alameen. So from where we stopped in our last lesson in the Aqaid of al-Imam al-Nasafi and also the commentary of al-Imam Taftazani, we are speaking about the impossibilities of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the author goes on to speak that Allah does not have is not any limited, doesn't have an end, wala mutanahin, wala yusafu bil mahiyya. This whether we say mahiyya or ma'iyya. So this is where basically we stop in our last lesson. I mentioned about genus, and in mantiq, when we give a definition of a particular thing, we gave any definition based on a genus and differentia. So Allah cannot be described as a genus, because the moment He is describing a genus, meaning there are other things that are similar to Him, and this is an impossible. So this is basically what the author mentioned when he said wala yusafu bil mahiyya. He said ay al mujanasatu lil ashya. There is no genus. We cannot be ascribing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as a genus which has similarities with other substances and other things. لأن معنى قولنا ما هو من أي جنس هو, because the meaning of ma here is ma huwa, what is it, meaning what is it and what is its definition and in terms of its genus, and this is impossible. والمجانسة توجب التمايز عن المجانسات والمجانسة توجب التمايز عن المجانسات. So when we speak about mujanasa, genuses, and they have similarities and also some things that are similar with other genuses, but the difference is with the differentia, the fasl, muqawwama, fayalzamu tarkib. So all this shows the impossibility, because it will show that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is similar to other things, and that He is compounded. So this is impossible. So our lesson today, inshallah ta'ala, and it will begin from here. We go on to the next one, and he said wala bil kayfiyya, and he goes back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by saying that He is not described with kayfiyya. So kayfiyya is the type, or we say the quality. We do not use the word kayf, how is, how does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala look like, or how does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, what is He, and so on and so forth. So he gave examples, and when we speak about kayfiyya, ay min al-lawn. So Allah is not ascribed with colors, ta'am, that is the taste, ra'iha, the smell, or harara, heat, buruda, this coldness, rutuba, moisture, yabusa, that is dryness. All these things is not ascribed to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because all these are the accidents or characteristics of contingent beings. So it is impossible that we ascribe all these characteristics to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So at the end of the day, al-Imam al-Nasafi is teaching us about the importance of understanding that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not the same as contingent beings, and this is based on the verse in the Quran, laysa kamislihi shay'un wa huwa as-sami'ul basir. Allah is not like anything other than Him. So we cannot mention that He is similar to other things, and that is impossible. So I think it is easy for us to understand this. Then he mentioned وَغَيْرُ ذَلِكَ مِمَّا هُوَ صِفَاتُ الْأَجْسَامِ, and other characteristics from the characteristics of substances, al-ajsam, substances, So everything that is any within the characteristics any of substances, any it is impossible any for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Wa tawabi al mizaji wa tarkib, and anything any that has any the characteristics any of mixing and compounding. So anything any that has any the characteristics anywhere it is mixed any with something else, or it is compounded any with something else, all these are impossibilities any for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So Allah yani cannot any be ascribed any with the characteristics any of substances, and he cannot any be ascribed any as something that is compounded or mixed any with other things. And then he mentioned wala yatamakkanu fi makanin. Allah yani is not situated any in a place. This is any one of the issues any that we are facing today. We have, for example, Muslims having any this ideology that God exists any in a place, and because any of many misunderstandings when they recite any of the Quran, when they look any at the Quran and they take the ambiguous any verses, by taking the literal meaning any from these ambiguous any verses, any people fell any into tashbih, into falling any into this problem where they come any to the conclusion that Allah reside any in a place, or is compounded any by place, that he has parts and he has length and breadth, that he sits on the arash, and all these things which are dangerous, which can make any a Muslim apostate, na'udzubillah min zalik, and if he's not careful. So that is why it is important any for us any to study any aqidah, ahlus sunnah, to protect any ourselves any first and foremost from falling any into the trap any of tashbih and tajsim, the trap any of the belief that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is a body, and that body any take up space. So let us look at what al-Imam al-Nasafi and al-Imam al-Taftazani any is saying with regard any to this. So the first thing any he mentioned that Allah any is not limited any to space or situated any in a place. لأن تمكن عبارة عن نفوذ بعد في بعد آخر متوهم. So he explained any what is any the meaning any of tamakkun. Yani tamakkun any basically any taking up any of space. So for example, when we say for example any this mouse and it takes any a space, so it shows any that this has width and length, and there is any this dimension. There is this dimension, and there is this limiting of the body any of this mouse any that take up space. So this mouse any is small, so the space any that it is taking up any is also small. In comparison any to my body any, for example, my body any take up more space any than the mouse, and the reason is because of the size, of the dimension, and of the length, and of the breadth. So here any he mentioned that what you call it, when we speak any about any taking up space, and we speak any about something any that has length and that has breadth, and something any that has all this dimension any in terms any of the size. So the moment any we say something any take up space any, meaning it is described any with a limited a body that take up any that particular space. So it has any limitation any in terms any of its length, in terms any of its breadth. So he mentioned أو متحقق يسمونه المكان. المتحقق يسمونه المكان. So when we speak any about substances, and if the substances and is not in existence, and we say all any substances and take up space, so we can imagine that whenever any we speak any about substances, it will any take up space. But when we speak any about substances any that is now in existence, that is in front any of us, then we are able any to see that this particular substance any take up any this particular place, and this is what we meant any as al-makan. So basically the author any is speaking any about substances any which are in existence, and substances which are not in existence, and even substances that are not in existence, we say that all substances any take up space. All substances, and despite any whether we are speaking any about the existing any substances or substances generally. So we say generally all substances any take up space. So when we observe a particular substance, then the space that is taken up any by that particular substance and is called al-makan. This is any the word here. He say yusammunahu al-makan. So likewise, always and we hear our scholars and mention Allahu mawjudun la fi makan. Yani Allah yani exists without a place. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala exists yani without yani a place. So the moment yani we say Allah na'udzubillah min zalik exists yani in a place, any meaning that he has what you call it, limitation yani to his body, that has any a certain length or certain any breadth, a certain any dimension, and is taking up any a particular space, and this is any impossible any for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because we are making him similar yani to other contingent beings any from substances and other things. Wal bu'du ibaratun an imtidaddin qa'imin bil jismi. And he mentioned any about al bu'd and the length any of a particular thing, and this is the thing and we study in physics, and we study any in science, in physics and mathematics, when we speak any about length and breadth. So whenever any we speak any about a particular substance, always any we ask any this question, any what is the volume any of the substance, or what is any the length any of the substance, what is the breadth any of the substance, what is the height any of this substance. So basically Imam Tabtazani and is speaking any about the characteristics any of substances. When we say that all substances any take up space, so we speak any about the length and the breadth and all these things. Wal bu'du ibaratun an imtidadin qa'im bil jismi. So when we say about the length, yani it is basically the length any of a particular substance that is associated any with that substance. And for example, this mouse, and for example, and we ask how long any is this mouse, and we say maybe this is 8 centimeter any by 4 centimeter, and the height any is 2 centimeter. So this is the characteristics any of this particular substance, that it is calculated any based any on its dimension. أو بنفسه إن القائلين بوجود الخلاء والله تعالى منزه عن الامتداد. At the end any he mentioned that Allah yani cannot any be ascribed any as having all this length and breadth and dimension, because the moment we say God and he take up space, and meaning he has all this dimension. Any how big is he, how what is his limitation, and in terms of his body, na'udzubillah min zalik, all these things, and he comes about. Likewise miqdar, any the volume and the amount, yani the amount any of the substance, or the amount any of the body, listilzami his at-tajazzu, and all these things any will bring about that he has what you call it, he's made up any of parts, and that he is he has this length, and he has in all his dimensions, and all these things, and he brings about that he has a limited yani body, or a limited limited any body any within any a particular space, and this is impossible any for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then any the author yani mentioned again, any there are some questions any pertaining any to some any philosophers. This is not any really any important. Basically he's speaking any about the difference any between tahayyuz and makan. Tahayyuz and makan. When we say tahayyuz, and we say taking up space. When we say tamakkun, we say also taking up space. But there is some differences any between tahayyuz and tamakkun. This basically what he's going any to explain. So I will just any summarize this. Basically he said that at-tamakkun akhas min al-mutahayyiz, al-mutamakkin akhasu min al-mutahayyiz. Yani when we say something that is tamakkun, yani it is more specific, and then we say something that is mutahayyiz. So when we speak about something which is mutamakkin, meaning something that has dimension, but something any that is mutahayyiz, something that may not have any dimension. So this is any the difference any between mutamakkin and mutahayyiz, and it is not any really important. We will any go on any to the next part. When he say wa amma dalilu ala adami tahayyuz, فهو أنه لو تحيز فإما في الأزل فيلزم قدم الحيز أو لا فيكون محلا للحوادث. So again Al-Imam Tabtazani here, yani he's speaking any about if any a person claim that Allah take up space, God take up space, and Allah is pre-eternal, then that space must be also pre-eternal. Any be pre-eternal, and that is mustahil. That is any impossible. Because spaces and places, they are contingencies. So how can something any be pre-eternal and contingent at the same time. So this is basically what he's going to speak about. So he said, وَأَمَّا الدَّلِيلُ عَلَى عَدَمِ التَّحَيُّزِ, and the evidence and to show that Allah and he doesn't take up space. فَهُوَ أَنَّهُ لَوْ تَحَيَّزَ, if Allah take up space and he say فَإِمَّا فِي الْأَزَلِ فَيَلْزَمُ قِدَمُ الْحَيِّزِ, yani it will come to the conclusion and that the space and itself and is pre-eternal. فَيَكُونُ مَحَلًّا لِلْحَوَادِثِ, and what you call it, it becomes there becomes a contradiction, that it is contingency, but at the same time and it is any pre-eternal. وأيضا إما أن يساوي الحيز أو ينقص عنه فيكون متناهيا. So whenever yani we say something and it is limited and to space, meaning it has limitation, it has limitation. أو يزيد عليه فيكون متجزئا. Yeah, and also yani it brings any about that it is made up any of parts and substances, and all these any are impossible to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then he mentioned وَإِذَا لَمْ يَكُنْ فِي مَكَانٍ لَمْ يَكُنْ فِي جِهَةٍ. Yani if Allah yani does not exist any in a place and does not take up space, then he cannot be ascribed any with direction, because direction any only comes to something any that has taken up any space or be in a particular place. Yani for example, if something exists any in a particular place, then only we can ascribe direction to it. For example, if I look any at this mouse and I know this mouse and is in front of me because of the place that the mouse and is in. But if I switch any the place to my right, now any I say that the mouse any is on my right. So earlier it was in front of me, now any is right of me. What is the thing any that changes it? Yani it is the place where the mouse any is placed. So direction any comes any from places. The moment any we ascribe something any as taking up a space, then only we can ascribe any direction. So basically what he's saying is that if any we were to say that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not any take up space and is not limited any to space, meaning we cannot also say that is limited to direction. So Allah any is not limited any to space and direction. So we cannot any be saying that Allah any is in a particular direction. That is why Al-Imam al-Tahawi any, for example, the famous saying in the book Aqid al-Tahawiyyah, yani he said that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala laysat kasa'iril mubtada'at, and before that and he said that la yahtawihi jihatu sit, yani he said that the six any directions, meaning fawq, tahat, on top, below, right, left, in front and behind, in all these any six any directions, la yahtawihi jihatu sit, yani Allah is not binded by all these any directions. So when we say that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not binded any by all these directions, meaning he is not taking up space. He does not exist any in a place not taking up of space. So when we negate any direction, yani basically we are negating any having any a place. So this is what Al-Imam Taftazini say. He say وَإِذَا لَمْ يَكُنْ فِي مَكَانٍ, yani if Allah does not exist any in a place, لَمْ يَكُنْ فِي جِهَةٍ, that he does not any exist in a particular direction, meaning you cannot ascribe any direction any to him. La uluwun wala suflun. You cannot be saying he is on top or he is below. Wala ghayruhuma. Ghayruhuma, yani we have all the six any directions. That's what mentioned by Imam al-Tahawi. So we cannot be saying Allah is on the right or left or on top or below. So these are the things any that we have to be careful. By ascribing direction any to Allah, meaning you are ascribing any places any to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So that is why it is very, very important any for us any to study our Aqidah very well. Otherwise, any we might enter yani into anthropomorphism, or we might yani believe that Allah resembles some any contingent beings, and all these things any has effect any on our belief and our iman and our aqidah. May Allah bless us any with yani guidance inshallah ta'ala. Then he mentioned لِأَنَّهُمَا إِمَّا حُدُودٌ وَأَطْرَافٌ لِلْأَمْكِنَةِ, yani places and direction, these are the boundaries yani of a particular substance, and these are what you call it boundaries any of a particular space or a particular place. Or nafsul amkina, or it shows any that exact any place or space bi'tibari urud al-idafati ila shay'in akhar, yani when ascribed any to other things. Any meaning, for example, yani we say yani this particular mouse yani is in this any particular place, this particular mouse in this particular place, and it means any that this mouse any is binded any by limitation, that it is limited any to this particular particular place. So whenever any we speak any about places any and directions, what we are saying any it is limited. It is something that is limited any to that particular any particular place, and that place any itself any is also any a limitation any within any itself, when we ascribe it any to other things. This looks like something any difficult any maybe any in terms any of the language, but basically and if I were to summarize any this paragraph, basically any what any the author any is saying is the impossibility any of Allah to be in a place, because when we ascribe something limited any to a place, then that particular thing must be a substance, and it must have any dimension. When you have dimension and it is limited, and all these things, all these are impossibles, the impossibilities. Everything that is limited and to space must have a direction, whether it is on top or, so all these things are negated and to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now when we go on, he say wala yajri alayhi zaman. So we have spoken any about the impossibility that Allah being any in a place. Tamam. So this is aqidah of Ahlus Sunnah wal Jama'ah. Aqidah of Ahlus Sunnah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mawjudun bila makan. So there are people and who always sometimes they ask in this question, Ain Allah, where is Allah? So what do we say? Yani we say Allah mawjudun bila makan. Allah exists any without any a place. And people ask any what is any the dalil? Dalil any is hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The Prophet any mentioned in the hadith any that is sahih, kan Allah wa lam yakun ma'ahu shay', aw kama qala sallallahu alaihi wasallam, yani Allah exists and nothing exists with him, and places are contingent beings, contingencies. It is impossible any that Allah exists in a place, because Allah is pre-eternal and nothing exists with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And as what Al-Imam Taftazani and he mentioned, if Allah exists in a place, meaning that place and it must be pre-eternal also, and this is impossible. There are people any who says, for example, Allah exists, his place is on the Arash. There are Muslims any out there that say that it is wajib upon every Muslim to believe that Allah is on. So now any they ascribe what? Direction and place. Where is any Allah? So they say that any Allah any is on the Arash. So if Allah any is on the Arash and Allah any is pre-eternal, that means the Arash any must also be pre-eternal. But in the Quran any Allah mentioned that the Arash any is a creation. Allah created Arash, and we do not have any differences any amongst any the ulama, yani to understand that the Arash any of Allah any is a creation, and all Muslims understand that the skies and the seven skies and the Arash and the angels, everything are creations any of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If Allah is on the Arash, or na'udzubillah min zalik, sit on the Arash, as some any Mujassima claim, then any what does it mean? It means any that the Arash any is pre-eternal, but the Arash any is not pre-eternal. So that is why we say it is impossible. It is impossible. And worse, yani I just want to share some of my conversation and with some people. When we ask them, and for example, that Arash yani is a creation, then it is impossible any that Allah exists on his Arash, yani as a place. If Allah any exists on the Arash, and Arash any is a creation, then where is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala before he created the Arash? And I was surprised when I asked some of them. The answer yani they gave any was that Allah yani was in a particular place which we do not know, and then after that yani he transferred yani to the Arash. And can you imagine yani this what you call it type any of kufr, na'udzubillah min dhalik. Yani when a person yani for example and he says that Allah or na'udzubillah min dhalik, yani he moved from one place yani to another place. Why is this any kufr? Why? Because the moment yani we ascribe movement, that Allah yani can travel yani from one place yani to another place, this itself yani shows that he is contingent. It shows any that he is contingent, because contingencies they move from one place to another place. So last time God is in a particular place, now he is in another place. It shows that he is not pre-eternal. It shows that he is not pre-eternal because he has the attribute of contingencies. And contingencies they change. And this is impossible for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So all this contradiction you find, it shows the fallacy of this ideology that mention that God take up space. So there is no connection whatever with the Islamic theology in any way. So this is not within the Islamic teaching, and it is important Muslims today to again I would like to emphasize this because this is reality that happens in our society. And many youths are influenced by this ideology because of the existence of this what you call it, social media and seeking knowledge through the internet and all these things, where people become confused, and there are others who are spreading this ideology. I would like to take this opportunity to remind myself and everyone, every Muslim, to be careful and not to fall into this waswas of the shayateen that will make a person ruin his deeds because of the fault that he has in understanding the correct belief in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. May Allah protect us and our children and those whom we love. So now when we go on to speak about time. So after the author mentioned about al-makan, then he say az-zaman. So Aqidah Ahlus Sunnah we say Allah is not binded with makan wala zaman. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is what you call it, cannot be limited to time and space, because time and space are creations. Allah created time, Allah created space, so it is impossible that he exists in something that he himself brought into existence. This itself is impossible. Before we speak about hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, kan Allah wa lam yakun ma'ahu shay, and the tafsir of Ar-Rahman al-Arsh istawa, we look at the tafsir of the mufassirin of our ulama. None of them mention that Allah is on top of the Arsh. So all these are verses of mutashabihat. It has to be interpreted. Or the scholars of the Salaf mention Allahu a'lam, because they do not want to confuse those who are present during their time. But after this false interpretations came, many of our scholars what you call interpret based on a sound interpretation on the principles of the usul of tafsir, that it is impossible for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to be like contingencies. So they mention the interpretation of Ar-Rahman al-Arsh istawa, and it's not that Allah is on top of the Arsh, na'udzubillah min zalik, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala he is all powerful over all of his creations, including his Arsh, and the word istawa has a lot of meanings. One of the meanings is istawla, that Allah has power over everything. He mentioned wala yajri alayhi zaman li'anna az-zaman 'indana ibaratun an mutajaddidin yuqaddaru bihi mutajaddidun akhar. So the author begins by speaking about what is zaman, what is time. So he says time is a creation, constant creation. What is the meaning of constant creation? Now we ask, for example, now we are at night time, earlier we are in the daytime. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he created night and day. So every moment is a creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Today when we study about this phenomenon, we come into the understanding that it is due to the movement of the earth around the sun. How do we get night and day? How do we calculate time? By the movement of the earth around the sun. So the earth moves around the sun in 24 hours and it completes its rotation. So due to this movement in such a manner, we make this conclusion that this is one day. So we use the calculation of the rotation of the earth around the sun. But imagine if you use the rotation of Mars. Certainly there will be a big difference, correct or not? There will be a big difference, and maybe Mars is much further away from the earth. It takes a longer time to complete its rotation, and it takes a longer time to complete its rotation around the sun. So where you see this difference, it depends on what is the measure that we use to calculate time. If you use the measurement of the rotation of the earth, then it will be different than if we use the calculation with regard to other planets. So when we speak about hours, we are speaking about the rotation of the earth, and this itself is a creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If you ask the question, how does the earth rotates? The answer will be that Allah created the movement of the earth. Who is the one who makes the earth move? The earth is moving. Tamam? The earth is moving at a very specific speed. Specific and accurate speed. It doesn't go too fast and too slow. It moves in a way that is very specific and has a perfection in terms of its speed. And it has been there for what you call it since the beginning, when Allah created the solar system. So this is what we meant by time is a creation. Imagine if the earth stop spinning. If the earth stop rotating, what happens? Time will stop. Our time that we use as a measurement in terms of the movement of the earth, now it will stop. So here we say that Allah is constantly creating time. How you get 1 second, 2 second, 3 second, 4 second, how you get 1 minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, how you get 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, how you get night and day, how you get 24 hours, it is by the creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala of the movement of the earth. Likewise pertaining to months and year. It depends, and if we calculate using the moon, the rotation of the moon around the earth, or we use what you call it, the solar system. So there will be a difference in calculation. So the author mentioned that zaman ibaratun an mutajaddin yuqaddaru bihi mutajaddidun akhar. So when comes to time, it is something that is created constantly. It is created constantly, and it differs with one to another. So an example will be the time that we calculate by the rotation of the earth will differ with the time calculated by the rotation of other than the earth, like Mars for example, or Pluto. If we calculate using Pluto for example, what happens, maybe what you call it 10 years of our time is equivalent to 1 year, because Pluto, imagine, because it's very far away from the sun, and if the speed of the rotation around the sun is the same as the earth, meaning it will take more time to complete one round in comparison to the time completed by the earth, because the earth is not too near to the sun, and it's not too far. So the planets that is nearer to the sun will complete earlier than the earth. So we have to take into consideration the difference in time, because when we look at what is our measurement of time in the first place. So this is basically what the author is saying. At the end of the day, it is a creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Wa indal falasifati, and the philosophers are saying, ibaratun an miqdar al-haraka. Yani it is the parable of the movement. Also, the philosophers also speaks about yani the movement. But ala kulli hal, he said, wallahu ta'ala munazzahun an dhalik, that Allah cannot be binded by zaman, by time. And then he goes on to mention wa'lam anna ma dhakarahu min at-tanzihat. He said that what the author al-Imam Nasafi mentioned about the tanzihat and all the impossibilities that Allah cannot be ascribed with, ba'duha yughni anil ba'd. Some of the things that he mentioned is already understood, because he using some synonyms, similarities in words. Illa annahu hawala tafsil wa tawdih fi dhalika. But the reason why Al-Imam Nasafi is using that, because he wants to explain further on certain things. Qada'an li haqqil wajib fi babi tanzih. So that he is able to explain fully on the chapter of tanzih, to explain about the impossibilities of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Wa raddan ala al-mushabbiha wal mujassima. And to rebut on the mushabbiha and the mujassima. Mushabbiha are those who believe that Allah resembles any contingencies. And mujassima are people who believe that Allah is a body. that Allah yani is taking up space and has this limitation and the substance and so on and so forth. Wasa'ir firaq ad-dalal wa tughyan, and to rebut any all these false and deviant sects yani within that is ascribed any to the Islamic any faith. Bi ablaghi wajhin wa akadihi, yani with the best any of ways any to rebut them. So Al-Imam Taftazani any is explaining the methodology of Al-Imam Nasafi in rebutting the false any ideologies. So by using certain words and repeating it. Falam yubali bitakrir al-alfadh al-mutaradifah. So Al-Imam Nasafi any at times any will repeat the same words or words any of the same meanings. وَالتَّصْرِيحِ بِمَا عَلِمَ بِطَرِيقِ الْإِلْتِزَامِ ثُمَّ إِنَّ مَبْنَى تَنْزِيعًا مَا ذَكَرْتُ عَلَى أَنَّهَا تُنَافِي وُجُوبَ الْوُجُودِ لِمَا فِيهَا مِنْ شَائِبَةِ الْحُدُوثِ وَالْإِمْكَانِ. Then yani, he mentioned that the main thing yani, about this particular chapter of Tanzih. What is any the chapter any of Tanzih? Tanzih yani, meaning to believe that Allah yani, is free from all these shortcomings. So he said that the reason any why our scholars any speak a lot any about these things, so that we are able any to understand that Allah is not like contingent beings. So Allah is not contingent. So he said min sha'ibatil hudusi wal imkan, to free Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala from any contingencies. Alama asharna ilayh, as what any we have mentioned any before this, he said la alama dhahaba ilayhi al-mashayikh min anna al-ma'na al-ard bihasabil lurah. And then he mentioned yani, some many of the mashayikh, yani the ulama within yani, this field yani, of ilm al-kalam or field yani, of aqidah, yani some of them and he mentioned what you call it when they speak any about al-arad. And he mentioned ma yamtani'u baqa'uhu, yani when they speak any about accident, they mention any, an accident is something any that is not permanent. Wa ma'na al-jawhar ma yatarakkabu anhu ghayruhu, and when comes any to the jawhar, to the atom, is something any that what you call it, that is binded any by something else. When we speak any about atom any, for example, any an atom any is something any that binds any with other atoms any to form what you call it a substance. All these things any we have any mentioned. Wa ma'na al-jismi ma yatarakabu huwa an ghayrihi, likewise any pertaining any to substances, yani it is made up any of other atoms and other substances. Bidalil qawlihim hadha ajsamu min dhak, by the evidence any by saying, for example, this is ajsam any mean from other things, meaning that it is what you call it, bigger than something else, any meaning the components any of that substance any is more than others. Wa anna al-wajiba law tarakkaba fa ajza'uhu imma an tuttasafa bi sifatil kamal fayalzamu ta'addudul wajib. And then he mentioned yani wajibul wujud, if it is compounded, any meaning that the parts of that wajibul wujud, if it is yani ascribed any as what you call it, this perfection, that it means there are many wajibul wujud any that are in perfection. And then he mentioned fayalzamun naqsa wal hudus, and this compounding any of parts, it shows any contingency any of that particular thing. So it cannot any be wajibul wujud if it is compounded. So wajibul wujud cannot be compounded any with other things. That is why any we mentioned any before this any that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not any compounded. So basically Al-Imam Taftazani here again and he is saying some any of the definitions any of the mashayikh, of the ulama, pertaining to what is the meaning of accident, what is the meaning of jism, what is the meaning of arad. All these things we negate any to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We say Allah ini is not jawhar, Allah ini is not jism, Allah ini is not an accident, arad. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not compounded, yani with other things. Allah does not take up space. Allah does not is not binded any by time. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not more than one. So all these things, yani we say this is babu tanzih. Yani we are saying yani that it is impossible any for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, what you call it, to be bounded any with with this any impossibilities. So inshallah ta'ala, we will stop here, yani because any of time. Many of these things any we have explained. Inshallah, in our next lesson, we will continue any to where the author any will speak any more any about the fact that Allah yani does not resemble any other of His creation. Wallahu a'lam bis-shawab. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. Allahumma salli wa sallim ala sayyidina Muhammad wa ala sayyidina Muhammad. Rabbana atina fid dunya hasanah wa fil akhirati hasanah wa qina adhaban nar. Sallallahu ala sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wasallam. Alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin.